Woo!
All right, we're in. Hey, what's up, YouTube?
Hi.
And
It's
TPK
happening.
Roleplay, it's happening. This is a thing that's been wanting for happening for a
For some
while.
time, I'm gonna go look and see when this very good idea came into it. Like, this is February, dude.
Yeah, this is before some big life things got in the way,
bro,
at least for
we
me.
good.
So
yeah, no, we good. This is February, so we've been noodling on this for a while. I'm really excited. I think this is such a cool idea.
cool.
So
Well, I
I'm
appreciate
really
that.
stoked.
So the basis of the idea, we'll talk about that in a minute, but the basis of the idea has morphed in that time in some really fun ways. So first things first, I'm DatMaggicJuice. I am a not so new anymore DM with TPK Roleplay, and we're going to talk about a little brainchild that I'm working on with Osarix Franco. Would you like to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, hi, I'm Osarix Franco. I do stuff on the internet sometimes, just a variety of TTRPG content, both on TPK Roleplay and over at Nat20. I am just wrapped up my year-long campaign on TPK Roleplay, The Bard's Refrain, which was a lot of fun. And now we're kind of moving on to other projects. This is being one of them. And I'm just really excited. I play in a bunch of games. I say some shit on Twitter. I don't know. I'm still working it out.
Aren't we all, huh?
Yeah, it's the other way.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about what we've got going on here in general. So back in February, for reference, it is now in a week into September.
Listen, we're busy.
Yeah, we're all over it's all good. In all the best ways. We got a lot of stuff going on these days. So I had this idea because in February I was still what I would consider to be pretty new at DMing, and was really because I was about 6 to 8 months into 2 campaigns that I'm running now, one with TPK. I had just really started sinking my teeth into what it's like behind the scenes for Dungeons and Dragons. I really fell in love with lore. I really fell in love with the idea of putting together the framework of a story, but then how much the players can influence the future writing of that story. So, like, even if you have a for sure start and an even semi for sure end, the meat in between always becomes I always say just as much written by the players as by the DM, if not more.
Absolutely.
So I had this idea to kind of throw another, like a new-ish variable into the mix for a homebrew story where we actually have 2 DMs instead of just one. And then on top of that, have a story that starts as 2 parts, merge into one final, we'll call it encounter or conflict or something along those lines. But it'll be a short adventure in at least 3 parts. I'm shooting for exactly 3 parts, but we know how that always goes, right?
Yeah.
So
Best laid plans.
yeah, so part of the reason we're doing this behind the scenes talk as a YouTube exclusive only is because mega spoilers if we didn't, and nobody's going to see this until after it's all done. So first mega spoiler has already been revealed, 2 DMs. Second spoiler, well, I guess not as big as the first, but basically 3 parts. And even if they turn into more than 3 episodes, it'll still basically be 3 parts. A sort of short adventure that Osarix Franco will be helming, and then another part that I will be helming, and then they will end up merging for one big with both of our distinct groups all in one. So that brings us to one thing I wanted to point out, one more fun thing about us, myself and Osarix Franco. How did this whole thing start? It wasn't just my little brainchild. I want to point out a little thing that actually a little interaction that Sarah and I had that I actually adored and will cherish forever. There was one point that we were just all kind of shooting the breeze. I think it was like in the player pub in TPK Roleplay's Discord, about like a bunch of games that have happened and like how people got involved with TPK Roleplay and stuff like that. And then Sarah pipes in and goes, "Hey, Magic, we've never played in a game together. We should fix that."
It's true.
As Sarah does, just like full blast, no holds barred, just like, "Hey."
Hey, by the way, I like this thing. I want to have more of this thing. Gosh dang it.
And that was still at a point of like, I think Bard's Refrain hadn't even started yet. You were writing the original, if I recall correctly, at that point, right? Like early this year.
So Bard's Refrain's been running since August of 2020.
Oh,
so
dang.
We just
okay.
wrapped up. So it was probably in there because I'm pretty sure like
in the
you would
middle.
have started. When did Tyranny start up?
Tyranny started similar time. I want to say a little later, maybe September.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I know that you were GMing,
Mm-hmm.
and like it was just one of those. I think it was like after like a Top Shelf episode or something, and I was just like, man. And that's the other thing too. You're playing with like Ash and Joe and all these like people, and they're like saying great things. I'm like, well, I'm seeing great things. I can see this, like magic, because we had like talked even before then too, like just like in Twitch streams and stuff like that. So it was just like, it's one of those things with like the TTRPG community. I feel like you get to know people, and then you like stop and you go like, we haven't actually played though. Like,
let's fix that. Yep.
Let's fix it. And then you like sent me a DM and you're like, hey, I'm gonna take your idea and I'm just gonna elevate your thinking in here a little bit. And I was like, pop that up to 11. I'm so on board. I'm so on board because I think this is such a cool idea and like has the potential to be like really special. Like I think what you said, like players write half the story anyways, but like taking two GMs and their different styles and kind of like putting them in the room and then mushing them together later. I think this is so cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.
So this is going to turn into essentially two sets of players, and it'll just kind of like break some barriers. I shouldn't say barriers, but I think that is the right word. Barriers is not a bad context word here, but break some of the existing barriers that are incumbent in what D&D is. You have a GM who is, yes, and I say this all the time, the GM is a player at the table too, but the GM is a unique player that has exclusive content and reaction and opportunity and tools at their disposal, whereas the players have a different set entirely. And there's some certain interactions and reactions that have to happen both ways. But when we put two DMs into it, I'm just so excited to see, even from what we're about to do here with just some idea crafting from the framework I just started with. I mean, I'll just say flat out, Sarah, you have just as much creative freedom as I do as far as I'm concerned with all of this.
Yeah, it's like, again, I think I'll just kind of complain here for a second. One of the hard things about being a GM is like, you often feel like you can't talk to anybody about your idea, right? Like, it's like,
not without spoiling it.
But a secret, you know, spoilers. You don't want to spoil anything, and it's stressful because, like, what if your idea could be made better? You know, or like, what if you're just really excited about it? And like, what's so cool about this is like, you've set up like some frameworky stuff, and now it's like, okay, but let's Sarah put a little spin here, or like Magic, like really hone in on this one point, and it'll become something completely different than if I came up with these ideas and just ran them, or you came up with the ideas. Like, I think it's the added perspective of both of us is going to make it really cool. Like, I'm really excited.
Yeah. Okay. So on that note, with that excitement fresh on the brain, apologies for anybody who's watching this video. If you can't read what's on the screen, that I did the best I could with it. It's okay. Maybe we'll put the OG draft like in the description section or something like that. But
that'd be cool.
At any rate, so the idea here, and I'll just start reading from the beginning of this outline, is that two separate parties of 2 to 3 adventurers, because of the combination at the end becoming then 4 to 6, affiliated with the Zhentarim, are being targeted by 2 scheming leaders from within it. Psst, that's us. The faction is usually filled with proud and self-serving individuals, which makes the faction overall formidable when it comes to obtaining powerful items, extremely skilled adventurers, etc. That is all a genericified description of the Zhentarim as it currently exists in the D&D world as Wizards wrote it. However, the 2 of us intend to usurp the overall intentions of the faction and turn it to their own bidding, turn it to our own bidding. I have to like change the the wording here. It's us now. It's not just something on paper.
It is us.
And we are not fans of the capabilities of some of the adventurers in the faction. And the fact that, you know, since they may be just as ambitious and scheming as us, we could be overthrown at some point. So we're essentially out to sabotage these 2 groups of adventurers so that we have a better edge at usurping the Zhentarim. So that's sort of like the basis of where you and I are coming from. I had originally ideas down of like, what if we're siblings, or what if we're spouses, or, you know, something a little bit more not inappropriately intimate than just we're 2 people. So that's one thing we could talk
bond,
about.
Right?
Yeah, there's a bond other than just like.
I also do bad things. Hello, bad doer.
Let's go do crimes.
Let's do crimes. Yes.
So maybe let's talk about that first. Is there? We are going to have a second segment of this, by the way. So anything that we don't hash out today, we'll probably talk about next time. I do have a running list. So what do you think?
Phenomenal. So I think because in our initial talks, like we've got the idea, like, our who we are is like the NPC that will be kind of like have inserted a little bit into the sessions that we run. And I think like I totally vibe with, you know, like whether it were siblings or really close, like childhood friends or something like that. I think that could be a really fun dynamic, because it's like it could, depending on what the players decide to do. Because like I'm trying to think of like, we get to the end, right, and we're like, haha, look, we're the bad guys and we've been the bad guys this whole time. Like, what kinds of things the players might pull on, or what would be interesting things to like have them play with. And like, we betrayed them, like, would we betray each other? Like, is that something that the characters like pick up on, like lean into it all, maybe? Like, establishing like in our individual sessions, like, we're doing this, like, we, you know, to help our, you know, this person who means everything to me, whether that's, you know, friendship, sibling, spouse, like what, like really what I'm trying to say, Magic, is I'm cool with whatever. Like, I think it just, whatever narratively makes the most sense. Like, I think initially as I'm brainstorming through it, like again, like the idea of like the childhood best friends who've like worked their way into the Zhentarim, and they're like, these guys are boring and they're not going nearly far enough, or they're not, you know what I mean? They're not, they're not willing to do what we need to do to like succeed. So I'm like, we're scrappy. So we know like, oh, these other people who are coming up, right? Like, they suck because they don't suck. That's why we don't like them. So it's like, you know, and that kind of that, like, it's us against the world kind of vibe.
Okay.
What do you think?
You know, I'm kind of torn. I got stuck on the original too, like the idea of siblings or spouses, but that's, you know, that was not me being really set on it. That was just kind of a lack of other ideas. So I think you've put a lot more flavor text and you know, the basis of what could be the idea, especially, and I really appreciate this, you know, potentially even forming it after or finalizing whatever form it takes after getting an idea of what the parties want, whether that be from a session 0 or even after like the first adventure and seeing how it goes and that sort of thing. So we could always finish crafting up our ideas of like, what is our we're the big bad evil guys the whole time final encounter potentially look like. There's some flavor that we could always modify and morph after getting some feedback in game, you know? That makes sense.
I think ultimately though, like I think it is, I'm just for my own notes, I think it is important that these, like my NPC and your NPC legitimately like care for one another. Like there is, whatever it is, like there is a strong bond between those two. That is, and like that's the motivation behind like what they're doing, right? Like sure they're chasing their own like selfish ambitions, but the relationship between the two of them is what fuels those ambitions, right?
Yes.
Like,
and the fact that we're doing them together.
Yes, exactly. I'm just making a note here. Ambitions. Because this is, so for the Bard's Refrain, this is kind of where I started, was with my big bad evil guy, like working my way backwards. It's like, what is his motivations and why does the party care? Like, because if he's just a guy doing his thing, who cares? And I think, like, again, with this, where we have the opportunity for two and get to play off of each other, I think there's like a lot of really cool stuff here. I'm going to go back through. Let's see. There was some stuff that we talked about. Let's see. Because we have been talking about it over the last couple months.
Right. So are you talking about the sort of Subadventures at this point? Or before that? Yeah,
I mean, we could. Yeah, so maybe let's do that. Let's talk. So the idea is that they're in the Zhentarim, and we have our different little crews, and they're going to go out on these sub-adventures, right? So like you have in this outline there, you know, the Miracle Brew and the Sentient. So basically one squad goes and does one thing, and one squad goes out and does the other, and that there's cross ties between the two. So when they come together, they're like, oh, we have clues, and oh, we have clues. And then it's like, and the clues point to like the actual plot that's been happening, not necessarily what's been happening in those. Do you want to talk through those little sub-adventure plots? I think that'd be great.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for sure. So the idea behind both of them, before we start parsing out one versus the other, the idea behind both of them is you and I essentially start out as, well, we're going to play off NPCs as informants to the party, of course, within the faction, that are intended to basically hint at the guys you're chasing are trying to overthrow the faction. And we lost contact with them after they've been working on these super important projects. And that's, you know, that and maybe some other details filled in, true or not, you know, because we're deceptive. We need you to go after those guys because they're trying to overthrow the faction, and that's a danger to you. And so that's like the 30,000 foot view for both of them. And then really the details of both of them just came from like side adventure ideas that sort of came to mind to me. So a Miracle Brew, if I recall correctly, you wanted to run the sentient one, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so the Miracle Brew, the basis of this is that a master alchemist, potion maker for the faction, has been very near a breakthrough in what he calls a miracle brew to achieve eternal life. Not unlike lichdom, but minus the nasty undead factors. So like being inherently evil and, you know, you're rotting away, but you technically don't die. Like minus that, a more graceful live forever kind of thing. But the sort of call to action here is that they haven't been heard from for several, it could be days or weeks past their, what I would call a scheduled faction check-in. So like major projects, everybody who's a player involved has check-ins with the leaders of the faction. So that, you know, progress report, that sort of thing. So they just like haven't given an update, you know, and their scheduled time to do so has come and passed, and that's cause for some concern. that's sort of the front facing, the player facing. The behind the scenes for this is what really has happened is that you and I, had intentionally altered one of the reagents in a batch that they retrieved for their sort of pilot blend, intentionally sabotaging their sort of first test brew, intending to kill them, so that you and I will end up with the final recipe, the final how to make this potion happen, and all of the ingredients all in one place. But we've sabotaged that first batch so that the creator is like, we just offed him. So we have everything for ourselves. So that's the gist of that one. Eventually we'll talk about like, what do we think could be aspects of these, the dungeon, even though it might not be a dungeon, especially in this particular case, but what kind of conflicts, sub-conflicts could arise within it, what sort of creatures and things will they find. The gist of this is going to be heavy on the potion making side. Maybe they'll find some awesome potions that, other projects that this person was working on along the way. They will almost certainly find this master alchemist dead. They will almost certainly find some sort of recipe, or at least a hint at what they were working on, and confirmation of at least some amount of information that we give them to send them there in the first place. But then we do need a final conflict as well. At the moment, I'm kind of thinking like maybe the guy or girl themselves, and like maybe our tampering with it was like we did make them undead instead of killing them, which is what we intended.
It's almost like the effects over a prolonged amount of time would cause them to die, but the side effects were it gave them superhuman strength, and like all of these other things also made them crazy.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Kind of made them Hulk out or something along those lines. It could be too, like, depending on what you want to do with the dungeon, like you're going through, there's all these like chemicals, ingredients, and all these different things. What if the guy had like a self-destruct sort of deal on his lab or something? You know what I mean? So the final encounter is just getting out. You know what I mean? Like you get in, there's a on the table is a golden box inlaid with silver filigree, and they're like, oh, we definitely touch that because it's shiny, and they like take it off, and like a little voice comes over. It's like, self-destruct is, you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
Or something like that. I'm a huge fan of like encounters don't have to be combat, and making it like great. So you just like came through this whole maze of puzzles and shit. Now you have to go back the other way. But remember how like in order to get past one puzzle, you had to like block off the exit. You know what I mean? Like make it so they have to think backwards through what they've already just done. I
am so loving working with you already. These are all ideas that I did not even think about, and now we're incorporating all of them.
It could be really cool.
No, it's definitely going to be really cool. Okay, noted on all accounts for sure. So yeah, that's just the gist of that one, and I think that the emphasis, in order to eventually tie it to your adventure and then the end, is going to be what was the point of this potion and why did we want it so bad. So we'll probably come to that, but that's like the main purpose, the main tying point between the two sub-adventures. Then we jump to Sentient, where we're going to have a similar situation, different application, and different scenes. So a master artificer for the Zhentarim has been building constructs, basically warforged, to be used as, we could call them companions, we could call them our own, small army, whatever, what have you, to assist faction interests. Right now I have faction adventurers, but that's solely for the companion thing. It could be more generic to just like soldiers for our cause sort of thing. And specifically for like particularly dangerous missions, death imminent sort of stuff. So in this one, I wrote in, upon reporting his or her progress of completed like units and their capabilities, their magically happening message is cut short. So this could be like your generic sending spell, and then all of a sudden responses stop happening, or even something more fun like thinking Star Wars holograms in the conference room sort of thing, and then all of a sudden their image just like goes away because something happens. The contact and their work are vital to upcoming operations for the faction, including but not limited to uncharted caves and dungeons, in search of like powerful magical artifacts, finding powerful people to influence to our causes, that sort of thing. That's the general idea for the player end. The front end, when we go behind the scenes, what's really happened is you and I had infused some of the materials intended for these constructs with pieces of powerful necromancers' souls. After making deals with them in their afterlife to return them to this world in the form of these constructs in exchange for their cooperation with us. Once they're in their new metal bodies, sort of thing. And basically, the person who was constructing them gets attacked at one point when some of them are being put together. Thoughts on that?
We talked a little bit, and I was scrolling through to try and, because we talked a little bit about what we wanted this to look like, and we talked about maybe like, one of the master artificer who's like been making these, he actually kind of catches on to like the dynamic duo's like actual attempts to overthrow the entire faction, and like that's like he catches on to the DD and goes, oh no, I don't think so, and is trying to like subvert and like out snow the snowman, if that, you know what I mean. We talked a little bit about that. We talked about the master artificer being stuck in one of the constructs, so if the players just go in and like blow stuff up, they'll accidentally blow up the guy who has all the answers. And I kind of love that a whole bunch. I love when parties are like, we're murder hobos. I'm like, that's fine, but like shits can get real.
You might end up hitting someone you might want to not hit.
And then you threw out the suggestion that the master artificer is the final soul necessary towards the like end plan.
Right.
That like part of the reason that we're sending in a kill, or we're tricking this party into going and cleaning it out for us, is because he's found out our master plan. So he'll suspect us, but like if we send in the goody two shoes of the Zhentarim, and he thinks that they're there to help, and he can like reveal our plot or whatever. But you know what I mean? Making it kind of like in Game of Thrones, when Brienne of Tarth and the Hound like see each other, and you're like, no, you want the same thing, and they start fighting, and you like scream at the TV like, no, you want the same thing. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's what I'm talking about. We set up a moment like that where like they are antagonistic to each other, not knowing, because they never communicated, they just never had a conversation, but like they want the same things. But I love this one. I think it's super cool. Like, again, the idea that like it's just a master artificer, like, and maybe like traps and puzzles lends itself more to this one than the Miracle Brew one. Maybe the Miracle Brew one is your hacking and slashing your way through all his test subjects that he's like used weird potions on, so it's kind of this like weird menagerie of like altered beings. Like freaking Yzma and Kronk, if they knocked over all the animal potions. Like that's essentially, oh my god.
I was actually thinking about that. Through. Yep, I was just thinking about that.
So they're your players are turning into llamas and octopuses too. Like, amazing. Versus sentient, which is a little bit more like an artificer's got like weird cranky little robots popping out of the wall and shooting shotguns and get off my lawn, you know what I mean?
No,
I love it. Absolutely. I think it's sick.
Awesome. So the gist of once we sort of hammer out some of those, what's the final encounters and final results of things for both of those, the common factor, or the intended common factor, at least at this point, unless we think of something different, for sentient is actually intended to be a construct gets away. Whether that's just one, or if we run with the idea that the Master Artificer soul was the last piece and it ends up being the one that they end up, getting siphoned into, excuse me, something along those lines. The sort of final combined conflict at that point, the idea in mind at the moment was some sort of super construct. I'm going full Transformers mode with this.
Yes.
There's some gray area as far as like tying the Miracle Brew Live Forever sort of thing. Maybe it could be something along the lines of the super construct knows that it can make them humanoid again, or like not a metal man anymore sort of thing. That's the only real idea I have in mind for that sort of thing, but something to tie them together.
Yeah, could it be that like so like the idea is that this potion gives the drinker like eternal life, right? And that's great. But what if they want like it's merging like metal and man? You know what I mean? Like the construct will last a long time, and now the person will. What if it's like almost like forging their will into like a singular being, so that will like almost like it's the pursuit of the most ultimate like being, right? Like
a synthesis.
You're great. Yeah, like you're great and I'm great. But what if we were together in a singular being? Then we could be like the ultimate power in the universe. You know what I mean? Like something along those lines.
What you're describing right now is giving me Mass Effect third ending after everybody was pissed vibes. Where I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
I'm not. So I'm here for it. I'm like, I'm spitting out new ideas.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, Sarah,
sentient
no.
AI.
It's been done.
Yeah, you're sentient AI. Your purpose is to protect organic beings, and they end up morphing that on their own to like they will always kill each other off. So we have to harvest them at the end of cycles in the universe, and then reset organic life type of thing. Versus organic life going, they're just killing us off. Like we need to stop this cycle. It ends up being like pick one or the other at the end, but then there's a third option of like, well, what if we just synthesized organic and
what if
AI?
we just combined?
Yeah. There's my 30-second
it.
description of Mass Effect, the series.
I liked it. Hashtag heavy. Listen, you were warned, heavy spoilers.
Absolutely. The game is like, the last game is like 8 years old at this point, so no spoilers anymore.
No, it's gonna be fine.
Anywho, so we're working with some.
So
go ahead.
Let's talk about it though. Like, so we've got, because I think that's gonna help inform. Because if we can figure out where we want them to end up, we can loosely backtrack like a handful of plot points that we want them to pick up in each of our sessions, right? Because what I think would be super cool is if in yours, your players get clues from my players. Does that make sense? Like they pick up like you're in this like potion master thing, but there's this weird little construct that's sitting on the table that like has, that this particular code inscribed in the back. And when they go to like in sentient, they're like, go and you get to the final room. Great. He's got like all of these vials with like just infinitely small samples of stuff. Like because the work it was important to each other, they just got a little bit of snippets of each other's work. So when we get my crew and your crew together and they're like, well, here's what we found. It can be like, now, wait a minute. That thing that you found is important to the stuff that we found and vice versa.
Okay, so you're talking like environmental cross-contamination here.
Kind of,
okay.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, like something to like help bring them together. Because they're the Zhentarim, they're going to be a not very trusting group. But if they have information that they can share that will validate the other person's like mission, I think that could be really cool.
I like that. I'm a
so
fan.
to that end, we've got Brew and we've got Robot.
Yep.
What do we want? Why Brew? Why Robot? I think that is something we gotta kind of flesh out. Why Brew? Why Robot?
Yeah. So I think that at least the original idea was intended to be you and I end up getting the benefits of both. So the intent was never really originally on our part to combine them. I think it's going to end up being like an accidental happenstance, but the sort of creature that'll come out of it will essentially be this third in it's the party versus you and me, and obviously in order to balance an encounter, we need more than just two people in the fight, right?
Correct.
and I'll fully admit, I know I am pretty much railroading this into there's gonna be a fight at the end, but
no, there has to for like, that's my thing. Like I'm all about like figuring other things, but when it's BBE like when it's time, when the reveal drops and like, haha, it was me, like it's fisticuffs.
We're gonna throw some hands. Yeah. And I feel like there's really no other possible outcome when we tell our players, hey, roll up level 15 or higher characters. Like, they gotta be able to use their stuff, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, and like what it'll be super cool is like getting to like play as a team against a team in D&D. Like, that's not something I've ever done. Like, it's always like the GM has their squad. It's gonna be totally different when there's like two people.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I'm very excited.
Yeah, me too.
So the idea being that we gained these resources. Resources to give us the edge.
Yeah, that was the original intent. Is that you and I, we know we can't, take over the world with just the two of us. So the intent was to like get some way that we can live forever without like lichdom was unpleasant to us. So is there another way we can do it? And then can we end up obtaining mindless, obedient minions to bend to our will? Hence the robot.
Gotcha.
But it was intended to be like an army. So what ends up happening is we get this. We do end up getting both. We'll get the potion. We'll get some amount of constructs, depending on how many the sentient party ends up killing off, or maybe there was just like a hiding place that's off scene no matter what. That there were more anyway. But the intent again is that you and I eventually obtained both. Final encounter ends up being. We accidentally, on top of, the other resources we intended, we get this super robot. And this is one of the big things I was going for the fun with this. So the one big thing was 2 DMs and the whole scheming thing between 2 Subadventures coming tied together. The other thing was a super unique creature. Have you heard of the called shot mechanic in like homebrewed ruling for D&D?
I haven't like encountered it a whole bunch. It was in the altered carbon system where you could call a shot. There was like a minus to what you're trying to do. Like it was like I'm gonna shoot him in the head, and it's like, okay, great, but you have to roll a certain thing to like do it, and there's all these like pluses and negatives. Is that what you mean, or maybe explain it? Yes.
So the most in D&D, the most immediate thing that comes to mind is the creature called a roper. Where it's a creature that can like latch onto people, and then you can choose to attack the main body, or you can choose to attack the tentacle that's grabbing you or someone, and like make it let go once you reduce it to a certain amount of hit points. But then the main creature is still alive, sort of thing. So it's along those lines where this super construct, head, torso, legs, arms. We got 4 creature stat blocks to keep track of. And doing anything, once you reduce one a certain amount, like it becomes dysfunctional and can't operate on its own anymore. There's still like, yeah. So at the end of the day, there's still like a central HP, and this is still in progress. So it could be something along the lines of like when you reduce any like if you reduce the head to 0, then it reduces the main HP by this many points. Same for the arms, same for the legs.
It has an overall effect. Now,
Yeah.
because it doesn't have a head, it has disadvantage on like attacks because it can't see or something like that. Or like
something like that.
It loses a foot. It dex saves are harder. So you know what I mean? Like giving them rewards for targeting certain points.
At the very least, the main creature, the creature overall, loses the abilities of that body part. So like the head immediately has like an Eldritch Blast eyes. And then once you kill the head, it won't be killing the head, but like disable it. That's a better word. Once you disable that body part, it can't use that ability anymore on its turn. Same for all the others.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I think this is super cool. And then meanwhile, you and I are just being like Team Rocket, like like,
still doing our own thing with as part of the encounter and everything. But and then on top of that, we're gonna have our own unique stuff too. So this isn't just all about the magical robot thing.
I love it. No, but hey, magic. Can we be honest? It kind of is about the cool robot.
It's gonna be pretty cool.
It's gonna be very cool. Okay.
But then so I'll have like whatever character I end up building into my person, but then I'll probably have some sort of twist that's geared toward the miracle brew. Maybe I'll have fireball potions and healing potions and that sort of thing. And then you can have you would have, as part of that sentient thing, would you have a prosthetic that has certain abilities infused, or are you a warforged yourself, or anything along those lines of mechanics?
Yep. No, I love the idea of like a prosthetic or like Doc Ock situation, right? Like a fully like fledged, like this artificer specialized in what is it? What are those called? It's not prosthetics. When you become a cyborg, what is it?
When you become a cyborg?
Yeah, right. Where it's like they're not implants either. There's a word that I can't think of right now. But you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I do, and now I'm blanking out too.
Yeah, it's okay. They're gonna roast us in the comments. It's fine.
Content.
But yay. But yeah, no, I love that idea too. Like, because that's oh gosh, and that could be so cool. Like, if my character, yes, okay, no, I like this a whole bunch. It's just my character can be very like obsessed with like appearances and all of this stuff. Like I'm hi, my name's Sarah. I like the RPPs, especially when it comes to big bad guys. But like very like appearance oriented. And so when like it gets to the reveal and I'm all mech suited out with this like construct stuff where it's like I finally achieved like true beauty or whatever the hell, some snarky something like that. No, I'm very much a fan of this.
All right.
The other thing too. So we've got super robot or construct rather. Okay, and we accidentally merged them, and it ended up being great. And we're like, haha, we'll somehow control this because that's what bad guys think. We have this ultimate power that only we can control because we're smart. And great. Okay, great. Yeah.
Oh, and there absolutely could be some sort of like, how like elementals, some elementals have the chaos written in, like they're just going to attack the first thing they see. Maybe at some point when all of the body parts are disabled, then it malfunctions and just starts hitting anybody it sees or the nearest thing to it.
Yeah, I definitely think if we're talking like lair actions and everything like that, like they have to originate from the robot either breaking down or like losing it, like whether that's like waves of necrotic energy or something like centering on like that's the thing is the robot's really going to be like the coolest thing. It's going to be more like it's an environmental effect. It's an actual like baddie. It's actually 4 baddies and 1 baddie. Like it's going to be really, really freaking cool. Awesome. Okay. No, so this is all, my brain is like, now I'm doing the like thinking things, which is a nice change of pace from the like corporate drone kinds of thing.
Oh yeah. Who needs work? Well, we do.
I know. Well, we do. Dang it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel.
So that we don't have to work anymore.
It's true. It's true. Okay, 6. So what are next steps? Do you want to take Miracle Brew and flesh it out to like your satisfaction? I take Sentient, flesh it out to mine. We come back with like our chosen NPC and like the adventure with like the puzzles and stuff. Like how do you see going from here? We agree on the vision. Very good.
Yeah. So I love where we're at so far. So I was actually going to ask you the very same question because awesome. From where I'm coming from is like, here was just the outline. And then if you want, so I guess there's more discrete questions to ask. Do you want to do your own maps, or would you like me to do them and then you have some input, or you know, here are the things you want, and then I just like do the map making part of it. Of course, I'll do my own, but
right. I think what I would like to do from my the way my creative process works is what I'll do is I'll write out like this. We've got like the like paragraph version. I'm just gonna like blow that out into like the different scenes. Like, here I can let me maybe show really quick how I do this, and then maybe if this is helpful to you.
Okay.
It's loaded with a bunch of bars. If I take over the screen share, is it gonna goof everything?
I have no idea.
Let's see what happened. Oh, it's disabled, so I cannot.
Oh,
here I can send you like
you
a
send it to me,
though.
yeah. Then I can just pull it up.
So I'll just. This is. We'll just do. Let's see. Where did I start doing this more better? Yeah, we'll do this. And then we'll just get a couple screenshots. They're going to be small and weird, but you'll get the idea.
Yeah.
So what I like to do is start with kind of like think of things as scenes, right? So I've got like my opening exposition. And then this is from one of the last sessions of the Bard's Refrain. Let's see. And then let's see, I cut that off at that. So I go through and I just break down scene by scene. Like, this is what I want to happen here. And then from that, I determine what kind of maps I need, what kind of tokens I need. And then that way I can like write out like everything. I just get it all out. It's all out of my brain. Let's see. Where'd my mouse go? There it is. Copy. And paste. So you can see, you know, there's the next couple scenes.
Oh, okay. It's not going to show without doing all sorts of funky things.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. Mostly like for you, so you can kind of see what I'm like thinking. So I'll break it down like scene by scene of like, so here's a question, Magic. Are we pitching this? Like, is this going to be like Magic's running a one shot, I'm running a one shot, or I guess 2 shot, right? Like, are we pitching it? Like, how much are we telling the players up front? Like, hey, come
I think
play
we
this game.
flat out lie about part of it. I think we say something along the lines of, hey, I put this idea together, but I wanted to team up with Sarah on like the writing and execution. So she's going to run half of it and I'm going to run half of it. And we're just going to kind of do this new fun thing and just make it seem like it's going to be 2 discrete adventures. And It's not until maybe, depending on which one we run first, whether it's mine or yours, maybe we put in some big reveal that they're actually connected and, oh, wait, there's going to be one more kind of thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I like that because I think planning out how we like do the reveal is important, right? Like getting the buy-in from the players. So I love the idea of like, hey, we came together and we wrote these adventures together, right? Like, and we're gonna run them, and then we do the first one, And then in the second one, we make like a heavy-handed kind of like call back to the first one or whatever, and reveal like maybe it is something like maybe the second one ends and sort of like one of us like jumps into the Zoom call last second and goes wahaha and does like evil laugh, and then it's like for the conclusion, third part or something like that.
Something along those lines. Well, let's marinate on those.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
So for your question on the more like tactical things, I'll write up my synopsis of plot points and all the things, kind of flesh out my NPC. Then I'll send you those notes and say, here's what I'm working with. This is what I think. As far as map creation, I do dungeon draft for like whenever I need a particular map or stuff. I also have like a huge resource like of different maps too. So if I find something in there that I just adore or want to use, I can roll with that.
Okay.
I'll send you to, there's a bunch of like character art generators that we can use for like NPCs, so it has like like feels the same for like enemy tokens and everything if we're not using like monster tokens.
Yeah.
Does that work for you? Like if we just kind of go that direction,
so.
And if you send your notes to me, and then that way like I can see what plot points are important in yours and can maybe like not hint at, but start to kind of like align some of the same things together, so we're moving in the same nefarious direction.
Yep.
I think that should be great.
That sounds awesome. And then I think I know this is way farther down the line, but it's worth noting that I think as far as like keeping the ruse up, we'll have to set up 3 unique Roll20 games. One for your adventure, one for mine, and then afterward invite everybody to the third. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I think
this a lot.
We've covered even more bases than I thought we would, so this is awesome.
Awesome.
All
and
right.
So for working title, are we rolling with, I love Insurgents in the Ranks. Is that what we want to call this little?
I think so, unless you have strong feelings. I actually enjoy the little play on words because I flipped back and forth between Insurgents TS and Insurgents CE in the ranks.
No, I love this. I think it's great.
So
I think it's wonderful.
Okay,
perfect.
Awesome.
Oh, magic, I'm so excited.
Insurgents in the ranks is officially off the ground.
It's happening.
It's
I have
happening.
a page in my OneNote, so it is happening.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it. So
awesome.
For you guys watching this video, we'll see you guys next time with our I'm calling this session -2. Our next session is going to be session -1. And
Very
then
good.
we get to the behind the scenes session 0s with our respective groups. So that's it. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye,
I'm going
guys.
to cut there on the video because
Phenomenal.
we'll do our outro introduction at the end of the next one, so we have the sandwich and not an awkward one in the middle.
Perfect.
Awesome.